That's Frank Burkitt and Kara Filbey at home in West Yorkshire in the north of England. Frank and Kara will be returning to New Zealand in January to tour the country with a reunited Frank Burkitt Band and a special duo show at the Auckland Folk Festival. Here's Frank to tell us more.
Spread your love around.
Yeah, so we when we left New Zealand, we moved to Manchester and got out of Manchester pretty swift because we don't like cities much. So we found the lovely hills of West Yorkshire were much more appealing and cheaper, which is important in this day and age. So yeah, we moved up here. So about we've been in Tomina for a year, but yeah, back over this side of the world for about God, it's nearly 4 years actually now. Just under.
Yeah. And was that the original plan, or was this because of COVID and whatever?
Yeah, so the original plan was to move back here, but we did it obviously just before COVID.
Yep.
COVID changed everything in terms of so the plan was to be based here but continue to tour a lot.
Yep.
Back over there in Australia, the UK again. We had all this all lined up, and it all got obviously wiped clean. But even that almost feels like old news now. There's been so much since then. But yeah, that was the plan. But we've sort of reassessed a bit, slowed it down a bit, and we recorded our album, the Silvereye album, which is what we're gonna finally perform live with the band on this tour. We recorded that in the house over lockdown, which was a great thing to do. So it was the first time we'd ever done that in the home. So that was really nice to do.
You enjoyed that process?
Yeah, it was great. It was lovely. I had to learn a lot. It's the fifth album that I've recorded, and I think through doing the previous four, I'd learned enough that I was able to record this one on my own in the house. Lots of YouTubing, lots of troubleshooting, lots of learning about what compression really is and things like that. But didn't get too far down the technical rabbit holes, and just it was just lovely to. A lot of the songs were new. We'd written them at the time, or just after I'd finished all the touring and stuff. And so it was lots of new songs, and the freedom to kind of create them in the house on our own. And then we got lots of parts sent to us remotely from muso pals in New Zealand and things. So it was a long process, not one that you want to normally wrap up an album in sort of 3 or 4 weeks, but this was about a 9-month process.
Oh boy,
it was a longer process than I'd have liked, but yeah, I think really chuffed with how it all came out. So it was nice. Yeah.
Very good. Did you have all the songs written and ready to go? It was just a matter of figuring out how to get it all down?
Pretty much, yeah. There was one or two that we probably actually wrote as we were making the album, which again is something I would never recommend, or like something that was unusual. But that's what having all that time and doing it in the house allows you, to kind of. So some of them were sort of written and then arranged and all recorded almost all in one symbiotic process, which was quite interesting. But yeah, the majority of them were there and ready to go. And it was just a case of sending them to sort of the bands who were in Wellington, and based over in New Zealand, and getting them their parts and send them back, which was the tricky part, because if they do a take in the studio, you can just go to do it again. But when they send you it back in digitally, then you have to email them back saying, can you do it again? And it takes another couple of weeks and yada yada. So it's all a bit of a fragmented process.
Yes, indeed. Well, you've got to adjust and adapt. Man. So what's the plan? What's your process once you land in New Zealand when you're getting ready for this tour? What are you going to do? How's it going to work?
So we land on the 10th of January, I think, and our first gig's on the 13th. So it's not too much time to get over the jet lag.
Right.
We kick off with 3 gigs with a 7-piece band.
Holy moly!
We rehearsed for a couple of days in Wellington, and then just get straight to it. So we've got the same lineup, apart from James, our bass player, is now actually, would you believe, living over here. He lives in Glasgow at the moment, and he's not making the journey over. But we've got Robert Henderson filling in for him. But other
Right.
than that, it's the same band we would have played with sort of 4 years ago, 5 years ago. And we do the Globe Theatre in Palmerston North, Fourth Wall in New Plymouth, and then Kakamea Hall, which is on Taranaki. Those first 3 gigs that first weekend will be with the 7-piece band. And then Kara and myself, just as a duo, which is a bit more in keeping with the album that we're sort of going to be singing and performing. We do the lovely Small Halls sessions in the Hawke's Bay.
Yep.
Lovely Jamie McPhail doing so well for the last couple of years. And or longer, however long he's been doing them. Wonderful what he's been doing them. And Auckland Folk Festival will be there for the 50th one of those, which will be really exciting. And then we end the tour in Northland in the Turner Centre up in Kerry. But we do a big gig in Wellington in San Fran on the 10th of February, which is another, the sort of end of the 4 or 5 weeks that we're touring again with the 7-piece band to try and which will be really lovely too. So yeah, lots of stuff planned, and I just can't wait to get back to just to play music with all our old pals really, and see so many old pals, and hopefully the people will buy tickets also. We can see some familiar audiences also. But yeah, very excited. It's going to be really great. Yeah.
Cool. So what is this the first time you've spent an extended amount of time away from New Zealand?
Yeah, so well, we obviously we lived in New Zealand 5 years, from 2014 to 2019. We've been away the last 4 years. I mean, we're very lucky that we've got residency there now, so we can always sort of
Come back.
Life balances, COVID, all these things have been in the way the last few years, and we could have been back hopefully a lot, but yeah, it's always a joy to have. We're so lucky that we've had New Zealand as our sort of second home, basically, and to have that privilege to have sort of 2 homes now. It's a blessing and a curse in some ways. You're always missing one when you're in the other and all that stuff. But it's so lucky that we can just sort of come back to New Zealand and do all this and have that set up. So yeah, wonderful. And the fact that it is probably what temperature is it in Auckland at the moment, Marty?
It's what temperature is it?
Well, roughly, what's the weather like there?
It's getting warmer, but it's not summer like, I have to say. It's been kind of gray and cloudy and windy.
Oh,
we've had quite a bit of stormy weather. I know.
Oh, okay.
I can't lie.
Probably not minus, but yeah, it's certainly just to get away from the winter here is a real highlight. Get some 6 months.
I'm sure we'll have some summer here by the time you get around to it. I hope so. Geez.
Arrange that would be good.
Now I see you did a video for World King, which has some kind of like vintage cartoon stuff and things like that. Why don't you tell me how that came to be?
Well, I don't wanna hate you, but you leave me no choice. You wanna be a ruler, not the people's voice. One day black, the next day white. Just keep saying what today thinks right. Or change with the wind, look out for your own. No need to listen to the masses moan. Well, applaud your voyage to the top chair, but that ain't far to travel when you're already there. World King. Hey, losing faith in it.
That was written as after the 2019 general election here in Britain, where we had the awful Boris got in with such a whopping great majority, and it was the anger at the time that I was going through, me and many others. But
then that went well, didn't it? Who knew?
It's gnarly. Despite all the tumultuous nonsense of the politics in this country, we're almost come through to a point. I mean, it's not any better really at the moment, but I almost can see a trick light at the end of the tunnel, because sort of Labour are polling very well now, and I think people are finally being like, right, let's give the other guys a turn.
Yep.
But anyway, it was World King was basically, it was very much about Boris, but it was, it does sort of apply to that whole sort of breed of kind of privileged, ambitious politicians that really there's such a disconnect when it comes to the real world.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was very much anger and written my little protest song about Boris and his like and his ilk. And yeah, the video we made again. I think it was still restrictions here when we made it. We made it in the house, and it was all very low budget and straightforward. But the cartoon, I found this wonderful sort of old 1930s Humpty Dumpty sort of cartoon that just seemed to because the original fairy tale of that is quite dark and sinister, and this sort of animation of it that I found from the 30s seems to just kind of, it's not particularly it's pretty obvious what I'm sort of getting at. There's not much subtext there, but it's kind of it seemed to fit the song and that lovely kind of cartoon and things. And so yeah, we melded them together, made a wee vid, and yeah, we sort of like it. We had the most ludicrous at the end of that video. We sort of get covered in rain, sort of in water, and we had our neighbours. Because we were all sort of locked down together, and we lived, and our neighbours had to sort of use watering cans from the other side of the wall to like pour water on our heads,
Right.
whilst I sort of set up several kind of rudimentary iPhones and cameras at the time. But it was fun. It was a fun little process. But,
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So you mentioned you're playing the folk festival here in Auckland, right? So
we are.
So do you think there's kind of
yeah.
a bigger folk scene? Is the folk scene growing? Do you have any idea, any thought about it as far as that goes?
Well, I mean, we've been obviously looking at it from afar. We haven't been in New Zealand for long, but it's certainly alive and well from what I, from just keeping in touch with pals and what you see obviously on social media and other things. I mean, the lineup for the 50th is actually a real good mix of some really good international artists. The Jellyman's Daughter is a Scottish folk band which are very big over here, but she's going to be there, which is fab. Those guys, and then there's lots of other New Zealand acts like T-Bone, T-Bone Trio. They were, now they're just T-Bone. There's four of them, but they've had obviously a wonderful tour that they in the winter, I think, didn't they, back months ago. Great sort of the wonderful sort of lyrical kind of fiddling and singing of Richard Klein in that band and stuff, and Jerry obviously. But yeah, and Jenny Mitchell's another name, obviously a bit in a sort of country mold, but she's doing great guns, and I love her stuff. She's just been strength to strength and just wonderful to see her doing so well. But yeah, there's the whole raft, but as I say, I mean, I probably couldn't comment, Mark. I've been away in the cold Tory Britain for too long. I couldn't experience in the New Zealand folk scene as closely as I'd like. But yeah,
fair enough. Well, hopefully it'll warm up over there for you at some point.
Might get above freezing tomorrow. You never know.
Yeah, boy. All righty. Well, very good. Well, we're looking forward to having you back here. So it won't be too long, and I'm sure it'll be sunshiny.
I'm sure it will. And yeah, please, thanks so much for this. And yeah, if anyone wants to buy a ticket to any of our shows, because we're then to avoid us going into debt for the rest of our life, yeah, you can do it at the Frank. The Frank Burkitt website has all the tickets and the links there and stuff. But yeah, can't wait to see you all and get back over there.
Very good. All right. Have a good day then. Thank you very much.